Hello, everybody. My name is Neetu Jain. Welcome to today's presentation about trends and traps in IT transformation. Before we jump into the main topic, I would like to tell a little bit about myself. I'm a lead product manager at USAA, where I lead a PaaS product, Platform as a Service product in IT, which is supposed to transform the way software development is done at USAA and set us up for success for many years to come. I did not start here. My professional journey started as a software engineer at companies like ST Microelectronics, Intera, and HP. Here I was basically a software engineer, hardcore focused on hardcore C++ programming in the embedded environment, and it was a new change when I moved to IBM, when I got introduced to the world of DevOps, cloud, and virtualization, etc. Here, I also moved from engineering to product management. I managed a cloud network security product portfolio at IBM, and I was part of software. So I was a cloud provider at this point. At USAA, Three years back, I moved to USAA, and at USAA, I saw things from the other side of the cloud as a cloud consumer. And this is also my first time that I actually worked in IT. Before that, before moving to USAA, I never worked at IT. So I got some unique perspectives on, coming from product R&Ds to IT and coming from engineering to product, that have shaped my views and opinions about IT transformation, which is what I'm going to be sharing today, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Before we jump into the presentation, I do want to put a disclaimer that these views and opinions shared in this presentation are just my views and my opinions, do not represent my company or anything else. So jumping into the agenda, there are 4 popular IT transformations that I have observed and that I would like to talk about. First being the product transformation, second being Agile transformation, and then DevOps and SRE transformations. So we'll go and I will jump into all of these, what these transformation means, how do we go about it, and what are some of the gotchas to be aware of. So let's start with the first one, which is the productization of IT. So the product transformation of IT is starting to catch up when we saw product management being very successful in the software industry. So product management traditionally comes from the manufacturing world and Procter & Gamble world, where it originated, but slowly it was picked up by HP, and now companies like Facebook and Twitter and Uber have pretty much glamorized product management. I mentor so many students, and I know like almost 70% of them want to be a product manager. So the success of companies like Uber, Facebook, etc., has proven the mettle of product management and software, and that's why IT world is also now looking up towards product management framework to transform the way IT works and IT thinks. I personally think that product transformation is basically a mindset change. You just start thinking. You change the way you think. So when you're thinking about a project, you're looking at certain things, and you're basically working on the same things from a product point of view. So we'll talk about it, how the view changes. But before that, let me tell you that if you are in IT and you are a product manager, or you're going through this transformation or have gone through this transformation, this is a question that you will probably relate to. I have heard so many versions of it. Are you a project manager? Are you a program manager? Are you a product owner? Are you a product manager? There's not a lot of clarity, at least in IT, on what these roles are doing or should be doing, and there's a lot of overlap. So I totally relate to this one. So let's talk about what exactly it means from project to product shift. And I was saying that it's just a different way of thinking about IT. So when you take a project, what happens is the scope is clear. We need to do X. We need to migrate everybody from, let's say, Java X to Java 8 to Java 9, or Java 9 to Java 10, whatever the project is, in IT, just taking an example. And what you do is, based on the scope, okay, these many people, these many applications, they need to be migrated. You sort of work around the schedule and the resources, like how many people do we know, by what time do we have to migrate them. You create a plan. And the whole life cycle of that plan is basically in that triangle. So the scope is fixed, and the schedule and resources you work around. What happens is, when you look at a product point of view, what happens is that you generally have, limited resources. Sometimes you can make a business case for finding more resources if there's a compelling case, but generally you'll have a set of resources, and the schedule is somewhat fixed, but, or at least, less ambiguous. Either you are chasing a market, or you're chasing a deadline, or there's something that you're chasing. So the schedule and resources are not ambiguous, but the scope is where you try to understand what should be the right scope based on the resources and the schedule. Or basically, both of these things might be driven by the market, that what exactly does your market need? Do you need it today? Does the market need it after an year? And based on that, you start working out the scope. The idea is to start early and then get feedback and then work on refining. So you might want to start small, just do a Wizard of Oz kind of a prototype, or, a concierge service. And then based on the feedback you do, you keep increasing the scope and making sure that you're reaching your target. So this is, as I said, a fundamental change. You initially, in a project environment, you have all the plans. While in the product environment, you don't have the plans. Your focus is towards meeting the customer need and making sure that the quality, so basically making sure of what you deliver is good quality and is meeting the customer needs. This is another view of the same things on how the project and the product differs. So basically, as you see, some of the key points, I think this slide captures it very nicely from Product Trends, that the teams are specifically built into a project, around a project. While in product team, you will have long-term teams working on your product who will think of the product as their baby, because they are looking to nurture it, grow it, improve it, mature it, and sometimes you have to sunset it. So you see, the team is a lot more involved in your products. The learnings the team gains while working on something are lost in project mindset, while they are not in product mindset. The project mindset is more, as I said, output focused and having specific end dates and fixed requirements. While in the product mindset, you acknowledge that you don't have the answers and your requirements will evolve. It's sort of like a moving goal. You try to hit it and see if you're close or not, like a hot and cold kind of game. And you're trying to, get to the best solution to crack the customer problem. So it is a lot more customer focused. And there is a lot of arguments to be had to bring this customer focus to the IT world, because IT consumers, which are internal customers, are pretty happy with that attitude of one and done. You did that project, you provided it to the customers, and then you've forgotten about it. Well, the customers are now using it. They have improvements, they have feedback. And in a project world, in IT project world, IT seems to be disengaged with that feedback, that opportunity to improve. And ultimately, if you improve the experience of your internal customers, internal developers and employees, or your company employees, you're ultimately serving your external customers too, because now they can concentrate on their job to be done and delight their customers, because now they have less time to spend, or they have better experience with IT. So now that there's a lot of argument for having a product mindset in IT, and giving a better experience to our internal customers. Let's talk a little bit about the traps. So when So these are some of the anti-patterns that I have noticed in the industry, and I'd like to share some of them. Productization is often confused with, that if we productize IT, it will make us a lean startup. The productization is a mindset change. The way you think about things, you start changing your view, your point of view. But at the same time, if the other things are not changing, if the execution is not changing, if your expectation from productization that, all of a sudden it will fix all your problem is not changing, then you will end up in problems. For example, I have seen that some places they think, okay, we are in a product world, we don't need project managers anymore because we are not doing projects in IT. Now we are doing products in IT. And they sort of replace all their project managers with product managers. Well, that does not work, because the less time your product manager is spending on project management, the more time he's able to spend on product management. But if you do not have a project manager, then you've basically hired somebody to do product strategy and product work, but you don't have anybody to work on the project management stuff. So either the execution will fall off and you will not get any deliveries, or the product manager will get involved in the execution part, and as a result, not have much time to do product strategy and product improvements and what exactly product management they set out to do. The second trap. So my point is that have a broader view of productization. Not that it's the magic wand that will fix everything. If there are other things broken, it is not gonna fix the problem. The best way to get the value of productizing IT is to make sure that you are developing what is valuable. You are not developing, projects or products that basically you're retiring every 6 months because nobody is using it. You are developing something that the masses are using. Now let's talk about the other anti-pattern, which is internal customers versus external customers. So yeah, you brought product management into IT. Great, you're developing good products, you're developing valuable products, useful products. The next problem that comes is that you do not have external customers, you have internal customers. The first problem with that is that you are not able to follow the money, which is, one thing that works out great in product management, often for prioritization. Sometimes you want to capture the market and sometimes you want to, increase the revenue. Here in IT world, both these criteria go away because you have a captured market already almost. They can go outside, but still, not using internal company IT is oftentimes not very feasible. So you already have a captured market, but they do not pay you. Oftentimes IT are not, like, we don't charge on our services like AWS does. So we are not able to follow the money, and we are not able to, capture the market. So how exactly do we prioritize? So that becomes an interesting equation in IT. The other interesting thing is support. So internal customers they have access to you. They have access to the product managers. They have access to the project managers and the scrum masters and the engineering team. They'll Slack you. They'll email you. They will, call you if they are in trouble. So it's important when you bring product management into IT to decide what kind of support will your products be having. What tiers of support, do you want to provide? How do you define high touch, low touch? Because for external customers, it is easy to decide if we provide this level of support, and if you want more than that, you pay for it. But here, the internal customers are not paying, so you have to reevaluate this equation. And if you don't, then you basically fall in the trap of that most of your team is most of the time busy with support, that they're not able to do development work. The other issue that I have seen often in IT is the load of run the business versus delight the customers. So you have, often in IT, you have, you're so burdened with run the business and tech debt and, just keep the running trains running, that whenever there is a new feature or new product to be launched, that's the one that suffers. Even though that might be better options, it is hard for you to stop the trains because there are already so many internal customers using this. Even though the experience is not great, they are not ready for you to stop it until you work on the new solution. So you have to try to keep balancing both the bad solution as well as work on the new solution, which might be a better solution, but you don't have time to work on that. So that's a constant juggle I have felt in IT. The other interesting pattern I've seen is the first time when I took a mural, and asked the team that let's figure out what is the MVP for it, or let's figure out the design, the journey map, and their thought process and design thinking was always like system design or the architectural design. I feel that the teams have so less capacity to provide to work on new features and new developments that oftentimes what gets axed is the pre-work like journey maps and the design thinking workshops, etc., which can probably help the customer experience a lot, but they are often in IT treated as optional things rather than necessary things, which at IBM and HPE I saw were not optional. Design thinking was the first place where you would start when you see a problem and, start solutioning. Here you directly go to architectural designs or, other technical details. So it's a little bit of learning curve to step back and think about design thinking instead of, solution designing and system designing and architecture. So now that we've talked about product transformation and some of its traps that you can avoid, let's talk about agile transformation. Product transformation and agile transformation sort of come in tandem. As you saw in product, we are focusing with the customers and we are trying to make sure that we take customer feedback and, create hypotheses and try to see if you're hitting the mark, if you're actually solving the problem. All that can happen only if you're working in an agile fashion where you are developing some proof of concept, you show it to customers, you get feedback, you show it to customers again, improve and get feedback and incorporate it. If you were in a waterfall, then you would be working a lot on the planning and initial, sketching, and you'll be designing all the details, etc., in that document, and then you start working in a waterfall model, and it takes a lot of time because you already made it too complex and foolproof. You try to make it foolproof, and by the time it gets delivered, it's either outdated or not working for the customer, or somewhere things got lost between translation. So product transformation almost all times, comes with agile transformation, or the agile transformation slowly comes with product transformation. So let's try to understand what exactly agile means. So agile basically is, a set of methodologies, a framework to produce iteratively. Smaller and frequent deliveries is sort of the mode of operandus here. But with the world of agile, the state of agile report says that there are so many variations of agile today, Scrum being the most popular one, but there are many others like Scrumban and Kanban and other hybrid models and iterative development and lean startup, of course, and some combination of it or extreme programming. And I can tell you my team itself has experimented with at least 3 of them. They went to Scrum and then, they figured it was not working because, it was too restrictive to waiting for the whole sprint to finish to pick up new work. Sometimes when you get blocked, they went to Kanban and then felt that Kanban is too fluid, it was hard to see what is our iteration goal, and also they went to some hybrid model of Scrumban. So it's interesting, and I feel that just like parenting, one solution does not work for everybody. You just have to try it out and see what works for your team. And as they grow, as they adopt it, I think they do grow mature and, become better at it. Now, Agile, as I mentioned, is, sort of seen as the key to move fast. Basically, speed and agility. is is what everybody is looking to it, to be able to adapt to the market, etc. As you can see, I think that simple diagram shows you clearly how in waterfall you will build, and then release and go to the market at the end. In Agile, often sometimes maybe you're delivering PI, program increment planning, and delivering at the end of the program increment, but you are building and releasing in between. Lean is what has, sort of the holy grail for lean is ship daily, get feedback daily, get the customers. The daily ship rate has become sort of the benchmark for lean, where you're building, releasing, taking feedback from the customer as soon as possible and to smallest quantity of delivery, and the frequency of delivery is what is valued there. Now, having said that, it might work great for lean startups. It might work great for new companies and all that. But in IT, I have seen often, especially if you're in regulated industries, move fast is good, but breaking things is not. So you cannot adopt that move fast, break things motto, because if you do, then you'll be leaving a lot of debris of technical debt around that you'll ultimately have to come and clean up. So you have to sort of find a balance, of how fast is enough or how fast is too fast, what is the real appetite for us? As you can see in this comic, moving fast, taking things does not work for a pharmacist or a waiter or a surgeon or a Mars rover driver. Moving fast and breaking things does not apply everywhere. The other anti-pattern I have seen is being fixated about Agile, how Agile is done. The Agile Manifesto has, done a great job, I think, at specifying what is the intent and the outcome. But at the same time, there are so many, safe, and there are so many other frameworks built on top of Agile with these ceremonies and these, set of requirements, which are great for guiding. But people get stuck on them. I have an experience where in one of the meetings, and this was a new meeting as a product manager, and we were trying to, hash out a new idea, and it was a big idea. So I said that, okay, everybody has a different opinion of what this problem is, what the solution should be. Let's get together and hash it out. So we started with it, and when we were doing backlog refinement, we did an MVP, and then when we were doing backlog refinement, we realized one of the top priority features was not broken down. Top priority epic was not broken down. So I suggested, okay, let's break that epic down so that it comes in the backlog refinement, and then we can do a better, efficient judgment of, how the backlog should look for next 2 weeks. And one of the inputs from a team member was, but we are in backlog refinement, we cannot do feature breakdown. We need a separate meeting for that. And I was like, okay, if you want, I can send you a meeting around the same time with a different name, which is feature breakdown. The way I see it is we need feature breakdown. I can change the meeting name if that works for you. So there's an example of, don't get fixated on the on the ceremonies and on the rules. Focus on the outcomes. Basically, what exactly do we need to do to, reach, better deliveries, faster deliveries, ship and learn, etc. The other anti-pattern that I have noticed is thinking that since we are agile, we don't need any plans, we don't need any requirements, we don't need any specs. I know at some point when a person asked in a meeting that where are the requirements, the other person responded that we're not doing waterfall. Why are you asking for requirements? Everything is in the Jira. It is good that everything is in the Jira, but at the same time, you need some higher level description of the solution, who's it for, what it's for, and what are the features available, how would you do data release, etc. Some kind of product specs. I know that we are talking about lean business canvas, etc. Those are good artifacts as well, but I feel that communication is not efficient if you just break everything in 20 Jira or 10 Jiras. It is hard for an external stakeholder to come and look and understand what the solution is about, reading the description of each Jiras and trying to formulate the whole picture. In my point of view, both serve a niche purpose, and I understand the argument that documents go stale. But the problem of documents going stale cannot be solved by just removing any documents. If there are no documents, nothing will go stale. No, that I don't think that's the right solution. The right solution is that you update the documents and you create the documents with the most important information rather than trying to capture all the details and evolve the documentation. So the thing that similarly, just like these comics say, one time is like, forget everything all I said yesterday, you're doing this new thing. This becomes really difficult when you are churning all the time. It causes a lot of stress on the product manager, on the team, on the delivery. It impacts delivery. So even though you want to be fast, you don't want to be churning so much, and that too without leaving trails, without documentation, because otherwise you're just going back and forth and explaining all the different stakeholders why we changed it, what we changed it in hundreds of meetings. You can avoid a lot of meetings by creating the right kind of documentation and having people who would read the documentation. Okay, the third anti-pattern, and as you notice, for these anti-patterns, I didn't even have to write bullets. These comics were all over the internet, so I'm sure there are many of them, especially with Agile anti-patterns. But I've just picked up the ones that I have seen, the most in my experience. The third anti-pattern is focusing on the outputs. I know there were some OKRs regarding, I have seen some OKRs regarding how many times did your roadmap change? That does not tell if the product manager is doing good or bad. Yeah, I guess you could say he's updating it, but that should not be a criteria of measuring the roadmap success or the product manager success. Similarly, like the team, I have seen OKRs around how many features you fix. It does make sense. I guess there is some value to fixing a lot of features, but what I started noticing was that when we started measuring number of features being delivered in a sprint, the feature size just started getting much smaller. It was no longer thinking of customer value or customer output. It was pretty much to size, and churn out more and more features. At some point, I feel that this is where, product and agile sort of cross, because from a product manager point of view, that thing is so small. You don't want to, you cannot release it to the customer, or you don't want to release it to the customer. So it is not actually a feature, because you're not releasing releasing it, but at the same time, you're counting it that, okay, I finished this feature. So, people game the systems when you start focusing on the output. So my suggestion would be focus on the outcome again. Okay, we have covered product and agile, which often go, in tandem. The other transformation that enables the path for, paves the path for these transformations successfully is the DevOps transformation. So agile, I think, is like a cultural change, and product is like a mindset change. DevOps, I think, is both like a people, process, and tech change. It's interesting how it falls in all three spaces. And the problem basically just started because of silos. So initially there used to be development teams who used to work and develop. And if I look at myself, this is how it was when I was engineer initially, in 2003. And then when they would give it to ops, and ops would be like, this doesn't work and this doesn't work, go back, fix it. And this constant battle of dev and ops gave birth to the DevOps transformation, just to make sure that, the engineering teams are working efficiently together, are breaking the silos, are collaborating. So I think this is a great slide in which you can actually see how Agile fits and how, continuous X fits, like continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous testing, continuous deployment, continuous learning. This is how the DevOps works, because you have a team in which you have all the skill sets that you need to go through the complete SDLC cycle, from plan, code, build, test, release, deploy, and operate and monitor your application. So as you are releasing planning new things and releasing new things, deploying, you're also operating and monitoring. So you have a constant feedback loop of continuous learning. And this is where I think everything comes together of ship and learn and ship fast and frequently. Your CI/CD pipelines enable the process of, ship and learn, so that you can ship faster and learn, monitor. So here is where, you need the technology, you need cross-skilled teams, you need a culture of collaboration, and this is where DevOps comes in. Ultimately, it's it's based on the thought that the more integrated and familiar your teams are with each other, the less painful and costly communication will be, and that's why there will be no silos. So your solutions there'll be no surprises at the end, and since you are continuously testing and working together and learning, and everybody's in the same team, they don't feel that he did that and she did that. There is no blame game. That's where you bring out the big potential of being transparent and lean, by collaborating. So that's how you would transform your teams and make sure you have a very autonomous team to get success, to continuously ship and learn and move your product forward. Having said that, we know that DevOps is great. It sounds on paper absolutely wonderful. Yeah, you'll have a team to work on everything, and they'll be autonomous, and they'll be able to make great progress. Having said that, there are some of the patterns that I've been noticing, and I guess other DevOps engineer can probably tell me better, relate to it. But one of the patterns is the tooling and the learning fatigue. So if you remember when I told you about myself, for 10 years I was doing C++ programming and nothing. I was as good at C++ programming. I was good at that language. And, in terms of deployment, I was doing embedded programming. So I had my own network security hardware device on which I would put my image and test it out. So in that sense, there's not a lot of long CI/CD pipeline. I just had my sandbox environment. So I realized when I moved to IBM, I felt like I've been living in a cave, because at IBM, when I moved to the cloud world, I got exposed to DevOps and virtualization and cloud environment, and I programmed like in Perl, PHP, Ansible, and got introduced to OpenStack and VMs, etc., all within the span of 1 year. So you can imagine how much there is to learn. You need to, apart from all the different programming languages which are changing every day these days, you have to learn sysadmin stuff and cloud management and containers and Kubernetes and orchestration, etc. So some people will enjoy and thrive in it, but at the same time, some people, might get too fatigued by it. So DevOps transformation doesn't mean that make every developer a full stack engineer. It means a team of cross-skilled people, of those who enjoy. Let them do what they enjoy. And that's what has been the anti-pattern I have noticed some of the times when you put a lot of pressure on your team to be cross-skilled and DevOps expert all throughout. What is happening as a result is I have seen that pressure, and what is happening as a result is that people who are interested in development and are developers at core are nervous. They enjoy doing development. They do not sort of want to get bothered by the infrastructure and orchestration needs. So that is sort of killing the developer inside, And on the other hand, the infrastructure people who have gained operations and, uptime experience and have so many lessons to share, they are nervous about the people who are core developers, about shipping their applications with blind spots. Maybe, they understand and they do the bare minimum to deploy their application, but maybe they don't understand the whole picture. And that is what, especially the platform infrastructure maintainers, it's making them nervous. So they are interested in putting more and more guardrails, and they are trying to understand how can these developers shoot themselves in their foot and bring my network down. So it's nervous both sides. The last thing is you are only as strong as the weakest link. So we saw the DevOps cycle, and everything is shipping fast, because you have enabled build code, and you can get to production whenever you want within minutes or seconds. Great. But if you have not worked with security or data and modernizing that aspect, then getting your accounts or provisioning your accounts and getting you access, if that is still through manual request, then basically all the effort that you put in to make a CI/CD pipeline to go to production quickly is not exactly a waste, but I would say the benefits are severely diminished, because ultimately you do need security, access, and you do need data. So unless those are modernized too, you won't be able to gain a lot of speed, because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And that is why you have seen the rise of DevSecOps and data ops, if you have heard, because whosoever gets left behind then gets added to the ops scene. But yeah, the crux of DevOps is that they should be cross-skilled teams. It doesn't mean only dev and op. It means security and data, etc. as well, so that there's no Wizard of Oz stopping you from you shall not deploy. Well, if you want to deploy, we will make you ready so that you can decide when you're ready to deploy, and there's nobody stopping you. So let's bring us to the last section of our presentation, which is SRE. So SRE is interesting, and this was, I learned that at USAA, and I've been fascinated about it. SRE is a fairy tale for reliability. And if you are managing an IT product, then you do know that reliability is probably one of the biggest factors in all your products baked in. It has to be up. The uptime is very important. I have seen the change in IBM. Often it was usability. It's not like nobody would say reliability is not important, but definitely it was maintained by a different team, and they were focused on that, but we were more focused on the usability of the product and other aspects of the product like security, etc. But here I have clearly seen that in my IT products, reliability is one of the biggest concerns talked about everywhere. And what SRE does, SRE is for System Reliability Engineering. What SRE does is provides a methodical way of preventing, finding, and analyzing things that can jeopardize your availability, your reliability. It's interesting how this trend started. This trend starts at the intersection of intersections. If you remember, I talked about how DevOps is in the intersection of Dev and Ops, but both Dev and Ops are nervous about, about having all that responsibility of, deploying their application, monitoring their application, reliability of their application, etc. SRE was born out of some of the engineers who wanted to actually take it up a notch and think about long-term, sustainability, product stability, reliability in a way so that it does not add toil. It is scalable, reliable, and stable in a fashion. When you're developing the product, you are catching all those risks early enough so that in the long term it is easier to maintain this application and keep it up. So SRE is I love the SRE principles because it's a lot about accountability and blameless a culture of blameless discussions that, okay, something that's done, what exactly was the root cause, do the root cause analysis and figure out how we can avoid it the next time. As simple as that. And I feel it, breeds room for innovation because of that culture. So if you are new to SRE principles, so these are probably 3 or 4 terms that you would want to know. SLO is service level agreement, and even though you are internal users, internal teams and developers within your company, I think it makes sense to do SLAs so that there is clear expectation, so that you can avoid getting pinged on Slack every 5 minutes when things go wrong, and you can prove that this is what we are agreeing to, and this is what you are signing up for. SLOs is the objectives to meet those agreements. So I could say, for example, my product's uptime will be 98%, during this period. Basically, 98% availability, and you can define it the way you want. Now, having said that, I know many of the products I have defined 99.99, the double nines, and since it's an internal product, all the customers would want 99.9999 availability for all the products, and that is not sustainable. So you make sure you craft your objectives clearly and reasonably. So service level indicators are basically things that you monitor, you sense through your systems, through your infrastructure, to see if you're meeting those objectives that you have promised in your SLA or not. And you basically configure these monitoring of these indicators such that before you breach the contract, or when you breach the contract, at both times there are some alerts being fired to the developer teams, so they can figure out, or they can figure out there's something wrong with the system. So it's basically automation where, instead of somebody watching the systems, that is everything working fine, you have automated, and you've sort of coded the sensors and responders, and they will come and alert you, okay, if something is wrong, we need intervention. In advanced SREs, you don't need manual interventions, and, things can get resolved by themselves because you have put enough automation in it and enough logic in it to see, okay, this might have gone wrong, so restart the server or do the X. The error budget is basically how many times can you how much is enough within a single time frame. If you breach your SLOs, say, more than X number of times, then that might be, your error budget. And based on this error budgets, you can have good qualitative discussions with your team on, this is our error budget, this is the sort of indicator of health of our systems, and this is how much time or this is how much work we have related to work regarding improving reliability, or we could do because this or do the development work, because there's always confusion between whether you should develop a new feature or just improve the existing system. I do know in DevOps team, the operations team is often very passionate about the uptime, as you can see in this comic, and they take it very seriously, while the development team and the DevOps team often are interested in developing new features. So error budget sort of, normalizes the emotions and brings data to the table. Now, nothing is, rosy everywhere. It does seem, like the solution to every problem. But here are the anti-patterns that I have seen with SRE. One is SRE team or the SRE, mindset gets overhyped or, over passionate, and then they want to sprinkle SRE in every team and every product. Every product is not that critical. SRE requires a huge amount of investment. You should make that investment wisely. You do not want to, say, provide 99.999 availability to an entertainment app that you might have in your office, just for collecting information or dissemination information, which is not critical. So you have to really figure out what is in the critical path and which applications or which products really need all the SRE effort, and then make sure you're setting, reasonable SLOs and SLIs. The other anti-pattern I've seen is that you define SLO, SLIs, but they're not actually hitting the mark. Customers' expectations are different. Either they're higher, or customers' expectation is different on how they perceive the product and what the product is supposed to do, and the SLO is something completely different. Maybe they don't care about availability, they care about response time. So it has to be in tune, and that's why it should be with the SLA, so that because product is all about focusing on the customer, so that you need to know what the customer wants, and you want to make sure you're setting the right expectations. The other is alert fatigue. I have seen my teams getting inundated. Initially, when they started with SRE, it was like, yeah, let's put an alert on this and let's put an alert on this. It will be great to know when this happens, when that happens. And then what caused that was like people started zoning out those emails. It's like, yeah, it's not that critical right now. It's not that critical right now. When that happens, then you're basically missing out an opportunity to grab the attention of the developer, because that was the purpose of the alert, that the developer can see something is going wrong and intervene before you breach the SLO. But since you have so many alerts, you're not grabbing the attention. The other thing is, which this XKCD comic, says very nicely, is it all starts like, I'll write this code, I'll automate it, and it will take over and my work will reduce. This is exactly what happened with our teams when we started investing in SRE. Initially, the idea was that the SRE automation will be able to sort of even prioritize our tech debt. And what happened was when we started, putting in our SRE efforts, we did see a lot of improvement in reliability and teams taking accountability for reliability. But at the same time, we never get to that point. It's still an ongoing effort up to 3 years, and we are continually investing in it. And oftentimes our original tasks are derailed. And we're trying to find a balance between them. Okay, I am happy to take any more questions. Thanks a lot for sticking with me all through the presentations. I'm sure you guys have seen more IT transformation trends and traps, and I would love to hear if you could share what you have seen in your industry, and I'd love to learn from it. Having said that, after the talk, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to talk to you if you have any questions further, or if you just want to share feedback, or some of the IT trends that I might have missed, transformation trends that I might have missed. Thank you, and have a good day.